Something is shifting inside the Las Vegas Raiders, and it's happening faster than anyone expected. The whispers, the tension, the frustration, it's all coming to a boiling point. And today, the loudest signal yet just came from ESPN's own Adam Schefter. Raiders fans, stay close, because what you're about to hear could change everything. Reports are pouring in from insiders across the league, but Schefter's comments hit different. When he speaks, the NFL listens, and this time, his words added real heat to the growing belief that Pete Carroll's job is hanging by a thread. Schefter appeared on the Pat McAfee show and was asked about Pete Carroll's job security in Las Vegas. And let's be honest, at 2-9, the Raiders don't look lost, they look like they've fallen off a cliff. That performance against the Browns wasn't just bad, it might be one of the worst showings in Raiders history. Oakland. Los Angeles. Las Vegas, pick an era, this version looks worse than all of them. And here's where the smoke becomes fire. Carroll never fired assistants mid-season in Seattle, not once. But in Vegas? 2 coordinators gone in just 17 days. First the special teams coach, then Chip Kelly. And Schefter didn't hold back. Right now, nobody on that staff is safe. Not a single person. Everything, every role, every decision, is under review after giving up 10 sacks at home. But here's where things get even more explosive, Pete Carroll still refuses to discipline Geno Smith. No suspension. No benching. No accountability. Just pointing fingers everywhere except where it matters most. And I'll say it clearly, this week is Pete Carroll's moment of truth. Suspend Geno, or bench him. Because if Carroll can fire coordinators but won't hold his own quarterback accountable, especially one who's publicly blaming others, then what are we even doing? Before we go deeper, if you're rocking with the content and want daily Raiders truth with zero sugarcoating, make sure you subscribe, like the video, and hit that bell icon so you never miss an update. Your support keeps this channel rolling. And now, the real question, is Pete Carroll losing this locker room? Or has he already lost it? Stay with me, the next part will answer that. Let me be completely honest, at this point, watching a 2-9 Raiders team stumble week after week leaves you with only one real option, hope for change. Not blind hope, not emotional hope, but the kind of hope that comes from knowing this franchise deserves far better than what Pete Carroll has delivered. And if the Raiders keep looking like this, uninspired, unprepared, and falling apart every Sunday, then the conversation about finding a new head coach in 2026 isn't a rumor anymore, it's a necessity. Some fans are dreaming about Clint Kubiak. Others still bring up John Gruden. Some want a fresh offensive mind, others want a defensive powerhouse. But the point is simple, everyone is begging for something better. Now here's where things get interesting. Earlier this year, one of the most trusted sources I've ever spoken to told me flat out, 0 chance Pete Carroll would be fired. 0. Not a little. Not slim. 0. But things change when a season goes from disappointing, to embarrassing. And every week, as the Raiders produce another disaster on and off the field, the insiders who normally stay quiet are suddenly speaking loudly. Adam Schefter. Ian Rappaport. Albert Breer. Jeremy Fowler. Big names. Big reputations. And now all of them, independently, are saying the same thing, Pete Carroll's job is no longer safe. I won't pretend every rumor is gold. But when multiple top-tier insiders start putting their names and credibility on the line, that means the foundation under Pete Carroll is cracking, and everyone can feel it. I spoke again with a trusted source just this week, and their words were short, simple, and very real, anything is possible. And honestly, I believe it. For the first time since he arrived, the possibility of Pete Carroll being a one-and-done head coach in Las Vegas is no longer crazy, it's becoming the expectation. Stay with me, the next part might be the final push that decides his fate. Up next, I'm going to break down exactly why I'm convinced Pete Carroll won't survive this season, and the few ways he might save himself if he weren't so stubborn. Make no mistake, there are clear escape routes for Carroll, but his pride and habit of protecting the same people will likely close every one of them. Here's the ugly truth, Pete's loyalty has become a liability. He clings to players and patterns long past the point of reason, and that refusal to adapt is starting to rot the locker room from the inside. You can see it in the game plans that don't change, in the same mistakes repeated week after week, and most importantly, in how accountability is being handed out. The biggest example? Geno Smith. He's not performing, plain and simple, and instead of holding him to the standard this franchise needs, Carroll keeps offering excuses and cover. When a head coach refuses to bench or suspend a struggling quarterback who publicly deflects blame, it sends a message: responsibility doesn't apply to everyone equally. That double standard corrodes discipline. Coaches and players watch it happen and start to lose faith that effort or execution will ever be fairly rewarded or punished. And once respect starts to slip away, winning becomes a fantasy. There are ways Carroll could flip this script, make a bold change, accept short-term upheaval for long-term culture repair, or finally put performance over sentiment. But history shows he's unlikely to choose that path. Pride is a powerful thing, and in this case, it's shaping up to be his downfall. I'm going to list the concrete reasons I believe he's done after the break. Stay with me. Geno Smith crossed a line the moment he flipped off fans, and somehow, Pete Carroll treated it like a footnote. Players, coaches, staff, anyone else who stepped out of line this season had their mistakes addressed publicly. Statements were made. Accountability was clear. But when it came to the quarterback, silence. A quiet conversation behind closed doors, brushed away like it never happened. That's not leadership, that's favoritism. And in a season already sinking, this kind of blind loyalty is exactly what's dragging Pete Carroll toward the exit door. Raider fans aren't just frustrated with Geno, they're fed up. This is becoming one of the most disliked quarterback tenures the franchise has seen, and the anger only grows every time Carroll shields him from consequences. If the baby, as some fans call him, keeps getting protected, he's going to keep throwing tantrums and interceptions. But the problem doesn't stop with Geno. Carroll has already fired multiple assistants, yet somehow the one person who remains untouchable is his own son, Brennan Carroll. Offensive line coach. Run game coordinator. And the man overseeing a unit that allowed 10 sacks without the Browns even needing to blitz on most of them. Pete stood at the podium and talked about wanting to run the ball more. But how? You can't run anything when your offensive line collapses instantly. Even Geno isn't fully to blame for that disaster. He held the ball too long, sure, but he never had a chance behind that wall of paper. Still, Carroll refuses to point the finger at his son. He'll discipline others. He'll fire coordinators. But when it's family, suddenly accountability becomes optional. And that's the kind of loyalty that doesn't inspire a team, it suffocates it. To make matters worse, the tension inside the front office is no longer a secret. Those executives see the bigger picture. They want to build for the future. They understand this isn't a one-season fix, it's a long-term reconstruction. But Carroll keeps coaching like he's trying to salvage a season that's already gone. That disconnect, between the front office's vision and Carroll's stubborn approach, is becoming impossible to ignore. Stay with me, because the next reason might be the one that seals his fate for good, and then there's the on-field chaos that almost feels self-inflicted at this point. When Kayla Rogers steps onto the field and suddenly gets yanked for Will Putnam and Alex Kappa, it doesn't just look confusing, it looks like a team with no direction. And the JPJ situation? That's another clear example. People inside the organization want him at center. They've said it. They believe it. But Pete Carroll refuses to budge. That gap between what the front office sees and what Carroll insists on doing is becoming a canyon. And here's the part that should concern everyone. From what I've been told, Mark Davis and Tom Brady have far more trust in the front office, especially in John Spytek, than in Pete Carroll. That alone tells you where this entire thing is heading. Now look at the schedule. 2-9. And I'll ask the same question Raider Nation is already asking themselves: where's the next win? The Chargers? No chance. Broncos? Not with the way this team is playing. The Eagles? They won't just beat the Raiders, they'll dominate them. The Giants? Maybe on paper, but if you actually watch both teams, New York looks far more disciplined and cohesive. Kansas City in Week 18. That's a playoff push game for them. And we all know how that usually ends. And yes, I skipped the Texans. But let's be real, that defensive line might be the worst possible matchup for this Raiders offensive front. It's going to get ugly, and everyone knows it. Which leads to the final, unavoidable truth: Pete Carroll is 74 years old. How do you build a long-term future around someone who may not even be here for the rebuild he's trying to start? This plan was flawed from day one, and the results this season have exposed it completely. At some point, you stop hoping for it to magically work, and you accept reality. It was the wrong hire. And now it's time to correct it. Stay with me, the next part brings everything together. At some point, every coach has to face the truth: if you want a different future, you have to start listening to the right people. This situation is the result of Pete Carroll's decisions, and now he has to live with the consequences. Money can cushion the fall, sure, but it can't protect him from what's coming. So the real question becomes, is there any way left for Pete to save his job? I'll tell you what I think, even though none of these paths are easy. Chip Kelly said something recently that actually made sense for once: in the NFL, if you don't win, you don't stay. Simple. Brutal. True. And for Carroll, the list of options is shrinking fast. Option 1, suspend Geno Smith for a game. Show the team, and Raider Nation, that loyalty doesn't outweigh accountability. Prove you care more about the Raiders than protecting one player. But honestly, I don't think Pete has the guts to make that call. Option 2, if not a suspension, then bench him for a week. A small slap on the wrist. Give Aiden O'Connell the chance fans have been begging for. Let the kid show what he can do. If Geno struggles again under Greg Olsen, there's nobody left to blame. Option 3, play your young guys, show real progress, and somehow win 5 of your final 6 games. But let's be real, that's about as likely as me finishing this show and catching a ride with the Loch Ness Monster to a Bigfoot meet and greet at a monster truck rally. And the reason none of this is likely? Stubbornness. This team has taken on Carroll's most damaging quality: sticking to a plan long after it's clearly failed. That's why this ends the way everyone already feels it will. Pete, your time in Las Vegas is running out. And it's looking more and more like you're going to be one and done. Stay with me, because the conclusion pulls everything together.